Should foreigners earning a PhD in America get green cards? That's the plan. It's called the Staple Act. It's sponsored by Republican Congressman Jeff Flake as well as some Democrats. So these folks are worried about a brain drain in America. This program would give immigrants who earn a PhD in science, engineering, or technology and math permanent residence in the United States. We welcome back the panel. And Gary B., I got to ask if you like the idea.
I don't like it, David. I love it. Yeah, a simple fact that kind of sums it all up. By 2008, one-third of the Silicon Valley companies were founded or co-founded by either Chinese or Indian nationals who were here on visas or green cards. You think about how many people those companies employed, how much wealth they put back into our society. This is the biggest no-brainer I can see in the pipeline.
Francis, I was unaware of some of these figures. 70% of all computer engineering PhDs are given to foreigners in the United States. 70%. Now, that says a lot about our own education system, but shouldn't we try to do what we can to persuade them to stay here and work here instead of taking all that knowledge back home?
Yeah, I think we should. Who's paying for their educations is one of my questions. Of course, if they pay for their own education, that's great. The other thing, though, is that I want to make sure that not all PhDs are created equally. So I just want to make sure that these are not the, over the internet or mail-in PhDs. And I am quite hesitant sometimes when we just have something that automatically ensures this. But I do agree that they are thinking along the right lines. We've got to keep talent here. We've got to keep America competitive. And we also have to keep our own U.S. students keeping up with these foreigners who are coming in and a little bit showing us up in some ways. So I do think overall we're thinking in the right direction.
Larry, is this a good idea?
Well, David, I was out in the Midwest, and Charlie Munger invited me out. It was Warren Buffett's partner. It's for a one-on-one meeting, and I'll never forget what he told me. Incentives, incentives, incentives. And he says, young people out there listening to us right now, always look at the incentives. So if you give someone a good incentive in a good piece of legislation that will actually create jobs, and like everybody said so far on the panel, in terms of venture capital, in terms of job creation, in terms of having those brains stay here, I'm all for it.
Gary B., are you at all worried about it possibly cheapening the idea of a green card? Because it is sort of like buying a green card, is it not?
I would, David, if we were giving it out to bachelors in English or something like that. The fact of the matter is the sheer numbers of PhDs that are in the areas that you mentioned, mathematics, computer science, is not that large a number. And given that, even if there is some fraud, if you will, which, look, I'm sure there will be, I think the benefits in this case far outweigh the gains.
Francis, what about the fact that it may touch on ideology? I mean, immigration is such a sensitive issue, and we are in a very politicized environment right now. People might say, oh, you're giving too much to the immigrants.
Well, that is the hesitancy when you have something that's automatic, where just anybody gets a PhD and they automatically get permanent residency, and that making it the sole criteria. So I say that is sort of one of the problems, and then they're going to have to regulate that. God forbid. What we need is more regulation. I mean, crazy. But I do think we are really, Steve Jobs' comments to President Obama was talking about we do need to keep a manufacturing base here. And he was forced to go over to China to hire people because we do not have the talent in this country. So I do think absolutely this bill probably in the end will do more good than harm. It's just I'm so leery when they just say, well, we'll automatically give you this if you have that. That's true. It's a blanket statement.
Final point, but Larry, that is a problem. I mean, when you have something that's automatic, you usually have people abusing it.
Yes, my Twitter handle's @ConvertBond, and I tweet about this from time to time. I went on the lecture tour, and I was in Beijing speaking about the Lehman crisis, and I spoke to this large audience of students, and lo and behold, a good portion of them were educated in the United States, then went back to Beijing to work and to further their education.
Last word from Larry McDonald. Coming up, a special tribute to a man who made a profound